Good morning, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us for this webinar. As you all know, the new NBIS is finally out, and many of you are getting ready for all the changes. Our asset inventory and inspection management software, inspectX, is ready for these changes, and we would like to show you how inspectX can make your life easier with the transition. A few ground rules. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be added to the webinar section of our website in the next few days, so you can access it from there. We have a chat section on the right side, and please use it to answer our question and type in your questions. We will answer your questions toward the end of the webinar. Also, use the chat section and the poll section on the right side to participate in our polls. If we ask you to join the stage to talk, please make sure your microphone is unmuted. Our speaker for today's webinar is my colleague, Kenny Tong. Kenny has more than 10 years of experience in the transportation management, asset management industry. He works closely with inspectX users to gather feedback and ensure they leverage the software to fulfill their business needs. Before joining Asset Intel, Kenny worked in FHWA as the division bridge engineer, where he worked with the Ohio DOT to maintain a strong bridge inspection program and meet compliance standards in NBIS and NTIS. So I'm going to hand it over to Kenny to go over the presentation.
Thank you, man. Can you hear me okay? I think someone in the chat said the audio might not be working well. Okay, sounds good. Let me share my screen. You can see my screen okay? Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining today. I went through the registration beforehand. I saw there are over 20 states attending today. So that just shows how much you guys care about this topic. And I want you all to know that we're here to help. And our goal is to make your transition as seamless as possible. So let's get started. So the new NBIS has been years in the making, and it went through many iterations over the last, I think, 10 years. So as you all know, the notice proposed rulemaking came out in November 2019. It went through like a 30-month long hiatus, and the final rule was finally published. So the regulation became effective in June of this year. So this is a huge milestone for FHWA to push this out, so kudos to them. So with this new regulations, there are a lot of big changes coming. I'm not going to go into details on each one of them. Just to give you a high-level overview, you got the maintain registry of bridge inspectors, schedule tolerance changes, inspection interval updates, and reporting critical findings to the feds. And the obvious one, transition from NBI to SMBI. And you got to collect a lot more data moving forward, such as crash tested data, span of substructure, and then you got to report any work that's been performed on the bridge every year. So these changes could add a lot of burdens to the owners. So this is pulled from the Federal Highway presentation, and these are the comments from the NPRM. So inspectors could be spending extra 1 hour to 10 hours per bridge, depending on the size of the bridge. And you could be spending from $200,000 to $18 million, depending on the size of your inventory. It just shows you the scale of the changes that are upcoming. And based on the FHWA timeline that's sent to us, so you have about 24 months adopting part of the NBIS, and then you have about 45 months to your first SMBI submittal. So all of this information can be found on the FHWA website and the link below. So I just want to start with a chat question. So you just need to type in your answers in the chat, and we can kind of quickly go over them. So the question is, which NBIS or the SMBI changes would be the most challenging for you? So we'll take a couple minutes and for everyone to type their answer in the chat box. Let's see, I can. So Omar says bridge railing. Yeah, that's a big thing to collect all the bridge railing data. So everyone go ahead and type your answers in the chat. Christopher got system updates and downstream application dependencies. So that's a good one because all the systems need to be updated to match NBIS, and a lot of dependencies. Everybody using these systems is that if it's not ready, you have to wait for them to be ready. Inventory management, SMBI data revisions, and ability for BMS to implement. That's all good one. Railing, that's a common one that I keep hearing about. And all the additional items not inventory. Matt says manpower to update data for each bridge. Jera, finding all the changes, get system ready for the change and update data. Yep. Keep the staff up on training. Brandon, that's a good one. Thank you. Those are really good answers. We appreciate it. So how can you relieve that burden? So what we recommend is that you can take advantage of technology. So you should trust systems and not humans, because humans tend to be very error prone, and you should be streamlining all the logic and processes. So it should be so simple and straightforward that you cannot get it wrong. The key is to reduce manual work, and each time you have to do something manually, more mistakes could happen. And the ultimate goal is to save time and cost. So for the past 20 months, we've been working very hard to upgrade our current inspectX. So we basically completely rebuilt the whole system from scratch, and it is now compatible with the new NBIS and SMBI changes. So we're already in the process of transitioning our clients to the new version. So let's get down to the nitty gritty and the details. So let's focus on the NBIS changes, the regulations part, and then we'll address the SMBI formatting. So it's just a quick reference. I'm going to have two icons consistently showing up in the slides. So the green check mark means it's already supported in inspectX, and then the clock icon means the implementation is still in progress. So the first change is the inspection schedule tolerance. So the new regulations is much more lenient. They're no longer using the +1, 2 to 4 months, and the 4+ months for compliance like you see in the current metrics. And I think the frustrating part in the past is that if your bridge inspection is late more than 1 month, you're already screwed. You're already out of compliance, and you need like a PCA or have a improvement plan. So the nice thing about the new regulation is that it allows you up to 3 months beyond the inspection due date for the lower risk bridges, and then 2 months beyond for any inspections less than 24 months. So the higher risk, which means the condition rating is much lower. So you only have 2 months tolerance for those. So our solution is we're going to update the schedule management section. We're going to calculate the due dates based on the new tolerance, and then divide the bridges into higher risk and lower risk. And our system will allow you to easily query and monitor upcoming overdue inspections. So just kind of give you a screenshot. This is the dashboard. So you always have access to the dashboard, your inventory, and your schedules. This is the schedule management section that you have dashboard, list, and map. And this is the kind of our data visualization. You can see your data in different ways. And if you look at the dashboard, we will configure into 1 month late, 2 months late, 3 months late. And then when you get to the red, you're going to be out of compliance at the 4+ months. And we're going to divide it into lower risk and higher risk. So in the higher risk, you got 1, 2, and then 3 would be non-compliant. So this dashboard list and map is going to help you quickly monitor an upcoming overdue inspections. And you don't need to track these inspections manually. I know some of you use spreadsheets to track them. It's tedious and it's not fun. So our system allows you to do it all in one place. Next, we have registry of certified bridge inspectors. This is a big one. You know, all the owners must maintain these data. Like each inspector is supposed to have a unique identifier, and you got to keep track of all the inspectors' qualifications. And then the regulations also added that you need to have the NSTM, aka fracture critical and underwater inspections course completed in order to perform the inspections. And then you also need to document the detailed information about any adverse actions about the inspector. And then another big change is that you need to have more than 18 hours of refresher training every 16 months. So this could add a lot of burden on the owners to chase down inspectors for qualifications. And since there's no centralized registry, this could be really bothersome to do it manually or keep track on a spreadsheet. So in inspectX, you can assign, we already automatically assign a unique identifier to each user in inspectX. And then every user can upload their qualification into the user section. So, and then like the system will automatically track your refresher hours. So let's say you did a refresher training in 2017. Once the 5 years has passed, it automatically will expire, and it will keep track of your total hours for your bridge inspection training and tunnel inspection training to make sure you always have your minimum of 18. And in the admin section, the admins can keep track of all the users and all their qualification all in one place. So you can really quickly filter, like on this filter here, you can filter who are all the team leaders and who are not the team leaders, and then who can qualify to perform NSTM underwater and who has not had the refresher training mat. So you can quickly filter these down and identify the individuals and email them and follow up with them. And something that's still pending is we plan to, you know, if an inspector does not have the necessary qualification, we can downgrade that person's access so they cannot be assigned to inspection for NSTM inspection. For example, if you didn't have your NSTM inspection training done. So this is something we're still evaluating. We're going to talk to states to see if this is something they want it. And if they want it, we can put this in place in the next few months. And then in the new regulations, it allows you to increase your inspection interval. So that's a really positive thing, is that for routine, you can increase up to 48 months in terms of interval. For NSTM, you can go up to 48 months versus the highest you could go is 24 months in the past. And then underwater, you could go as high as 72 months. So for method one, this is largely based on the condition. So if your rating is larger or equal to 6 for the most of it, then you know you could bump up your inspection interval to 48 or 72 months. So that's a really, really positive change. And then method two, that's a rigorous assessment. That's going to be defined by the agency. So every state could have different method for this. So what we can offer is that we can help our clients perform queries to identify these bridges. And you know, for example, we can identify all the routine that could be bumped up to 48 months for you. And then we can mass update the inspection interval from 24 to 48 months, for example. And then we're going to put invalidations in place. So let's say your bridge has a deck equal 5, and then you try to schedule an inspection that's more than 24 months. You know, the system is going to warn you and tell you that, hey, this is not allowed. Please change it to 24 months, for example. So we're going to put invalidations in place so you could not mess up in this area. So on the opposite end, the new regulation allows you to increase the interval, but also allows you, more like forces you to reduce the interval. So when your condition ratings equal less than 3, you're going to have to bump it down to 12 months for routine, 24 months for underwater, and NSTM is 12 months. So you cannot exceed those intervals. So there's a deadline that's set by FHWA, that's June 6, 2024, is that you need to make sure all your bridges follow these criteria by then. But the extra thing is that there are three new fields that you need to collect: the scour condition, NSTM inspection condition, underwater inspection condition. So that's not part of current NBI. So you need to have all the data collected within these 24 months so you can make sure you have your interval match the new NBIS. So just to kind of give you a high-level examples, that if any of these conditions matches, that your interval would not be able to exceed 12 or 24 months, depending on the inspection types that you have. So similar to increasing the interval, we're going to help our clients identify any bridges that falls into this reduced inspection interval category, and we're going to help our clients mass update the inspection intervals in the system. And then we're also going to put in validations in place. So for example, if your DEX equal 2, then your interval should not be in 24 months, and the system is going to warn you about that. Critical findings. So all of you should be familiar with critical findings. And anytime the DEX, super sub, covert channels equal less than 2, that's immediate critical finding, regardless what type of bridge it is. And then the regulations also allow the state to customize their own policy. But at the end, you're supposed to notify FHWA within 24 hours. And then you're also responsible for submitting a report to Federal Highway until they're resolved. So that's a lot more extra work. I think before you only supposed to notify FHWA, you don't need to submit the report, so the report part is new. So here's the minimum requirements for the report. You got to have the owner, the structure number, date of the finding, description and photos of critical finding, the plan of corrective actions, the dates is completed. So all of this need to be collected and reported to Federal Highway. So we already have a maintenance section in inspectX. So that allows you to collect critical findings. So we just need to configure this maintenance sections to include the extra required fields by the feds. And then what's nice about inspectX is that anytime your bridges falls into the critical finding category, you can automatically receive alerts for the managers, or you can immediately send emails to Federal Highway and say, hey, this bridge got a critical finding. And then what's nice on top of that is that we can send monthly aggregate reports to Federal Highway. So what it means is every month at a specific time, you can send a bulk report of, hey, these are all the inspections that you have critical findings. These are still pending. And so the feds are aware of what's going on on a monthly basis. And the only thing we need to work with the clients is set up the report in the email template to Federal Highway and to the managers. So another thing is border bridge data. This is not new. You're already supposed to submit border bridge data right now. And, it's a duplicate of efforts. You got one state that's responsible for inspections, but you got to have the exact same data if you're bordering that state. So it adds extra work during the data submittal process. And the positive change about that is that the neighboring states only need to submit abbreviated bridge record. So we don't know the abbreviated format is, so that's still to be determined. So what we've been doing for some of our clients already is that we can import the border bridge data directly into inspectX without you manually create an inspection, manually go type it in. I think, when I worked in Ohio is that I know Ohio DOT, every time for data submittal, it's a pain for them because they got to get the border bridge data. They will find like an intern and manually create an inspection, enter all the inspection data into the system for like 30 plus bridges. So that's a lot. That's a lot of work for the states. So what we could do is literally take a partial tape file of the border bridge data and literally directly import it into inspectX. So and then you're done after that. You don't need to do any extra work. So that this could save a lot of time for our clients. So now let's move on to the SMBI transition. I know a lot of you guys are kind of scratching their heads how you guys going to get started. So let's go with the poll question, and Human's going to open the poll here. So ideally, when would you like to start collecting the SMBI data? So you got 4 options: as soon as possible, before the end of the year, starting 2023, or starting 2024. I hope no one want to start after 2024 because that'd be cutting super close. Give it a couple minutes. Okay, we got 32 answers. Let's give it one more minute and you guys can put in your answers. Okay, so then we can release the poll, kind of show the results.
Yeah, everyone is seeing the results.
Oh, there. Okay. So we got about 11 answers that they would like to start as soon as possible or before the end of the year. I think the majority is going to be starting in 2023, and that's kind of expected. And then we have some will be starting in 2024. Okay. This is very good data. Thank you. Really appreciate your answers. Let me. So, and then the next question is, what is your biggest concern regarding transition to the SMBI? So who may want to release the second poll? Thank you. So one would be my software platform's not ready, training the inspectors, increasing contract costs from the consultants because they need to spend more time in the field collecting the data, huge increase in time in the field, and lack of personnel and resources. This is good. So about 23% says the software platform's not ready. So yeah, like every vendors need to upgrade the system to match the NBIS changes. You got training the inspectors, increasing contract costs. That's a small percentage. Huge increase in time in the field. Surprisingly, that's lower. And then lack of personnel and resources. So yeah, that's always a challenge that you got to do more with less. Okay, so We do this in every webinar. So we typically invite a few state DOTs on stage to kind of briefly talk about their experience. It's nice to know what other states are doing. So let me see. Let's pick on Omar. Whom you want to invite Omar on stage? I'd like to hear what Ohio DOT plan on doing for the data collection.
Sure, I invited Omar.
Let me see. I can't see the. Oh, there we go. I can see it. Hey, Omar. If you're muted, just would like to hear your perspective on ODOT and what they plan on doing. I don't know if you guys have discussed it yet. Okay. Omar's a little shy today. Whom you want to pick a state?
Yeah, let me invite Jera from Utah.
So Omar typed in the chat that he's planning on getting consultants hired to do the SNBI data collection. So nice. That's good to hear.
So Jera's on stage. Jera, if you don't mind, you can give us a little bit of information about how Utah is planning to go about this.
Okay, so I don't think I can hear you guys for some reason. I think it did this last time I was up on the stage, but can you guys hear me, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, from Utah's perspective, we're just kind of hoping to dive into the SNBI transition as fast as we can, but we do have some challenges to overcome, especially on the software and trading, kind of almost all of the above to that poll question earlier. I'm just trying to get everything sorted out and identified of what we need to change. And also we're kind of looking and using it as a really good opportunity to go through and do a really good QC check of all of our existing data and use that as kind of an opportunity to review everything that we have in the database since we have to touch it all anyway.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. I see Caltrans, a bunch of people from Caltrans here. So I said that's a big state in the West.
Let me try to invite Errol, see if he can give us some insight if he's available. So Errol, if it's not a problem for you, if you can give us some insights in terms of the Caltrans plan, in terms of collecting SNBI data and moving to the new NBIS.
Well, sure, Hubon. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. And from the California perspective, just like my colleague in Utah, it's kind of like all of the above. We look at our critical path challenges, the update of our existing BMS. We use a custom designed BMS that is obsoleting. And so we need to get our software platform on board. Getting that through our in-house IT division is a bit of a challenge, particularly in a compressed time frame, what I consider to be a compressed time frame in our IT's normal workflow processes. As with others, getting the staffing up to collect the data. I did see one of the opinions in the previous chat that it's almost like doing an initial inspection all over again on each bridge. That may be kind of what it's like. There's new data to be collected, obsoleting old data, and then populating that into a database that is available to accept it. All those things I think are one of our significant challenges. What our plan is, our strategic plan to meet that is that we are creating a crosswalk from the old processes and procedures to the new. This is intended to define the resource demands that are going to be required to meet the new regulation. And once we were able to establish that, of course, we'll have to go to our executive management to be able to gain those resources in short order, train our staff, onboard our new BMS, train in the new BMS, try to import our existing data where applicable, and define what data needs to be collected in the field, and then go get it. So that's I was one of the 1 in 5 respondents that said that we would prefer to wait until 2024. I think we're fully going to need to have, the as much time as possible to prepare for this. I would rather us not rush out and collect data only to have to go recollect or re-input this data in time because we maybe had a poor understanding of what's required or the BMS was not capable of accepting it. I'd rather hit this with a well-formed plan and be able to put our resources and lean into the initial data collection, the initial shakeout for the BMS in the first couple of years, kind of do a one and done on that initial collection, and then see where we are moving into, into the next phase, which we consider that to be after the initial data collection and the shakeout of the BMS, what goes next. So I know I spoke a lot, but that's where I'm at from my end. There may be some of my colleagues from our Bridge Asset Management Office in the room, and they may be able to add to these comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your response.
Yeah, great insight.
Let's get a couple more.
Sure. So let's see. Let's ask Keith from Georgia, see what is their plan. He's with a cell phone. Let me see if Brian. So Brian, I invited you to the stage if you don't mind giving us some insight regarding Georgia's plan to move to the new coding guide.
Did you invite him on stage?
Yes, invite. Brian is invited. Maybe he has some problems. Oh, he's here. Yeah.
All right, can you hear me now?
Sure.
Okay. I guess we're just as the other states are. We're just trying to figure out how we're going to hit this, and we want to, as you've been talking with us, hit it head on. Starting the 2023, if that's going to be possible with our system upgrades and things. Just really waiting to see what all y'all are going to be able to transfer and make the connections between the coding, the old and the new systems to see what additional how it's all going to work together. It's kind of hard to make that decisions when we haven't seen the program and how it's going to work, with the old data and the new data coming in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Brian.
I'm gonna invite Mark from New York if he's available to give us some insight on what's the plan for New York to move to the new coding guide. Apparently, Mark cannot get here, get to the stage. For the last state, let me ask Brandon from Nevada to join the stage. So Brandon, you're on the stage. If you don't mind unmuting your microphone and give us some insight into Nevada's plan.
Brandon, I don't think we can hear you. The microphone might not be working.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I have a new, so it's new microphone, so it wasn't working right. So, well, one thing because we have a bunch of bridges that are at 48-month frequency, so we need to make sure that those are still going to be available for us to continue moving forward. So we're not that's one thing that we're working on first is getting the I guess getting together the memo to submit to the FHWA for reapproval of what we currently have. And then training the inspectors is definitely going to be a concern because we kind of have an issue just with budgets and stuff like that, getting people trained up. So, I mean, so some items might get pushed more to consultants than in-house until we can get people trained in-house. So,
Mm-hmm. Are you using method 1 or method 2 for your intervals?
we're going to use method 1.
Okay.
Because method 1 kind of follows what we already currently have. So we're hoping that it's just a pretty seamless transition, but we'll see. So, and then the other thing is just trying to make sure the software we end up using is up to what we is ready to go for the transition and everything like that. So.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, Brandon. Okay, let's continue on the slides. We appreciate everyone who participated. Really appreciate your answers. So for the SNBI data collection, the first submittal is due in March 2026. So this may seem a lot of time, but if you look at the time frame, the agency have about 2 inspection cycles to collect the data. And this is a steep learning curve for inspectors because they need to learn how to collect a brand new data sets. And we strongly believe that inspectors should have access to both NBI and SNBI data sets while inspecting the same inside the same inspection during the transition, so they don't have to go back and forth. So for inspectX, we support both NBI and SNBI within the same inspection because this is much easier and you don't have to flip from old report to a new report. And just to kind of show you is that inside the same inspection user interface, you can collect the NBI data sets and you can also collect the SNBI data sets. So you can always reference, your old data without printing out a separate report. And all of this can be done with the tablets. So, if your inspectors are on the field, they collect the data, they don't have to come back and manually enter those data back in the office. So I know some of you are eager to start doing data collections soon. And, some of you might have to collect the data separately in like piece of paper or Excel sheet, and then once the system is ready, you do have to manually convert them back into the database. So that could be a lot of work. And according to Federal Highway, the SNBI crosswalk is coming out in July. So once that is out, we're going to automatically convert all the existing NBI data to SNBI format. So that way you can minimize a chunk of the data collection already. So we recommend not to wait and just kind of get your feet wet and start as soon as possible and be familiar with the process. But, like Earl said, there's a risk that data could be collected wrong, later down the line. So it's much better to get clarification from your FHW reps to make sure, the data meets the consistency of the SNBI. So give you a high-level overview, the SNBI data is no longer a flat structure like in the old NBI with the ASCII file. And it has one-to-one relationship tables as well as many-to-one relationship tables. And there are 54 new items added to the SNBI. they discontinue 20 and then continue on with 100. So hopefully the crosswalk will be, you can crosswalk 100 attributes from NBI to SNBI once that crosswalk is out. So that would really save a lot of time. And there's a primary data set, so what we call it, that's like the asset data. And in inspectX, it can support any NBI, SNBI, or agency attributes. And many of the lookups have been changed from the draft coding guide. So the attributes are updated per the final coding guide. And then the admins can configure the inspection form to meet their needs. And so you can kind of have different tabs, and depends on your workflow, and put in any attribute, whether it's SNBI, NBI, or agency, or mix. You can configure your inspection form that way. So this is a new requirement. You know, I think in the NBI, you just collect the data 43A, 43B, what type of bridge it is, and then you're done. Right, and with the new SNBI, you need to collect a whole new data set for span and substructure. So this is a new requirement. It's going to be a huge increase in data collection because you need to do it for every bridge. And, you know, like you guys said, you know, every inspection is going to be like an initial inspection, collect all this new data for SNBI. So we already support this out of the box to collect multi-relationship tables. And the way we have it is two ways to input data in. So you have a horizontal scroll bar that you can scroll down and input fields. And then we also have a detailed form view. Is that if you click on the I button, it pops it out into a form that you can just quickly go straight down and collect your data. And on top of that, you can also assign photos to your span if you wish, and you can also add any state agency fields. Like, let's say you got extra fields you want to collect about the span, you can add them here as well. So this is already supported in inspectX. And this is an example for the substructure, material, and type, and you can do everything straight from the user interface. For the longest time, you guys are familiar with the under records. It's always the most confusing part of the data set. So the draft SNBI combine both the routes and features. In the final SNBI, it's separated into, so the primary would be the parents, and then features would be the subset of the primary, and then on top of that, you have routes being the subset of the feature. So this is a many-to-one relationship, and so you have two child to the primary data set here. And this is just an example from the coding guide and what type of data you need to collect. So this is also supported in inspectX. You know, we also support the parent to child relationship type tables. So within every feature, you can also go to the subset, which is the routes, and collect additional data from there. And then when you click on routes, you can input your information. You know, this is route 1, and you put your route number, direction, route type, and service type. So this is how you can handle the routes to features data. And just like before, you can assign photos and add any extra state fields if you wish for this type of data. So roadside hardware, this is going to be, I would say, a pain for everybody. And there's a huge pushback in the comments, you know, because this is going to be a huge undertaking for the inspectors because the level of effort, and then the inspectors are not familiar with the crash tested railing, and the chart that came out in the coding guide is not very easy to follow. So it's not very straightforward. You can't really do like a lookup feel for this because, you know, for the MASH, for example, you got M, and then you got to put the year, and then it's TL1 or TL2. So, and then you got other ones that do not follow the year format. So this could get really confusing for the inspectors out in the field. So to make this a little easier for you guys is that we can add the chart to the inspection form. This is supported. This would give reference to the inspectors on what they need to put in, and you can add other photos or other reference materials as well. So I just put the chart here as an example. And then it's, instead of typing M181, for example, it's better to break it down into 3 different fields. So one, you have the railing type. So for example, you put MASH, and then you put the TL code, TL1, and then put in the relevant year. So this is very much easier to follow for the inspectors. And then at the end of the day, once the data is collected, we can automatically convert that format for tape. So you have MASH, railing, TL3, 2018, the inspector inputted this data, and then when we submit the data to FHWA, it automatically converts to M183. And then we have pop-up that give you the description. You don't need to remember what M means, 350 means. So all the description for the lookups can be put in here. You can add more description if you like to help the inspectors enter the data more accurately. So yeah, the interface should be easy enough to guide the inspector through what they need to input for this roadside hardware. And then next, we have posting status and evaluation data sets. And posting status and evaluation would be a subset of the primary data. So the tricky thing about this is that, as you all know, for posting and low rating, it does not always follow like an inspection cycle. So first you would do the inspection, you see the conditions has dropped, then it triggers a low rating, and then you do a low rating and then realize that it needs to be posted. And so now agencies are responsible for tracking those posting status and change date and report it to the tape. So the data itself, we already support that you can do the data inputs. And what's nice thing about this is that in inspectX, it allows you to create different inspection types. And so you could have a low rating inspection type, and you could have a posting inspection type to just update the low rating and posting data at any time. So in here, you could be doing a routine inspection, and then it triggers a low rating, so the low raters can create an inspection and just update the low rating fields. They don't need to access to any other parts of the inspection. And then once that low rating triggers a posting, and then someone from maintenance go put out the sign, and then you can give access to that user to just create a posting update inspection, and then update the posting date as well as the posting status. So this keeps tracks of everything. You have a history of what items have been updated, and it's much easier to follow versus trying to keep track of all within one inspection. And then for the inspection data sets, there's an increase in requirements as well. There's a lot more dates for the owners to keep track of. So in the past, you only need to collect the inspection dates. Now you need to know the inspection begin date, the inspection complete date, and when the inspection is updated, and the quality control date and QA date. And on top of that, you're supposed to track the equipment used for each inspection. So that's way more than what you have done currently. And you also need to report any relevant inspection notes. So for inspectX, we're going to be revamping the inspection date page that you can enter your inspection begin date, your completion date. Also allows you to keep track of your inspection equipment, put in your notes. And what's nice about this is that you don't have to keep track of all these different dates separately and making sure that it's accurately reflecting the tape. So for QC, for example, when an inspection is reviewed and approved, that date's automatically logged as a QC date and inspection update date. So 2 of those already taken care of. And then on top of that, so if you're doing QA inspections, you can create a QA inspection type that's already allowed in inspectX. And then once you finish your QA and approve it, that QA date's automatically incorporated into the tape. So that will minimize all the extra efforts that you need to manually track all these dates. And when data submittal is due, you just press a button, the tape is automatically going to include all those dates for you. And what's nice about inspection equipment is that once you start entering the inspection equipment data in, you can use a query to kind of, for example, you need to start planning for snooper inspections for NSTM, right? So you could say, hey, show me all the bridges that use a snooper in the past. And then you would get your quick list, and that's going to really help you improve your schedule planning. And then for work data sets, this is new as well. You're required to report any work that's performed each year. And many of the agency track these activities separately. They might have a maintenance management system, and so they need to incorporate this data into the SMBI data. So what's nice about this is that we already support a maintenance section to track this type of data. And the agency can configure this maintenance form to add any extra fields they like. And our maintenance section already divides the categories into deck, super, sub, covert. So many of those requirements that you would read in the SMBI for the work data performed, it's already included. And then what's nice is that all our existing clients already use this maintenance section to kind of track the inspection items from recommended from the inspectors to all the way to when they're completed. And all of this stuff, you don't need to do extra work for the tape. All of it is going to be automatically incorporated when the data submittal is due. And then, for new clients or non-clients that, we can always migrate your maintenance data from any systems that you would like into inspectX, so you can keep track of that, update it when you do your inspection, and keep track of the complete workflow. So just kind of summarize all these big changes is that the new inspectX is ready to take on, all the new challenges that's coming with the NBIS and the SMBI, and we're in the process of transitioning our clients to the new version. So any new clients will be onboarded straight to the new inspectX, and you don't have to worry about that. And then I'm going to emphasize it again. It's really nice to support both NBI and SMBI data collection at the same time, because you can transition at your own pace. The inspectors can, do a subset of data at a time. They don't have to do all of it. At the same time, they have access to both data set that they can refer back and forth. This will really help speed up the process and then minimize going back and forth between data sets or printing out separate reports. So that's really going to ease that transition. And then, we can't wait for the crosswalk to come out in July from FHWA, because that's really going to minimize a lot of the extra data collection for you guys. And we will automatically convert the NBI data to the SMBI data. So you will only have to, hopefully collect like 30 extra fields instead of 100. And as I mentioned throughout the presentation, many of the processes can be automated, and this will be less burden on you guys, and it will be streamlined, and you don't have to worry about all these little extra nuances. And our recommendation is still like try not to wait. You don't have to collect all the data right now, but I think it's good to kind of get your feet wet and get the transition started, so you know what kind of kinks you need to work out. And lastly, we really want your feedback, because a lot of the great ideas came from you. So if there's anything, in this presentation that you see, like, hey, there's a better way to do this, we would like to hear from you. The only way to make a software great is get the user's feedback. So that's our number one priority. So I'm gonna leave some time for Q&A. Human, do you have some questions that need to be addressed?
I answered everything, so let's give the audience a couple minutes and see if they have any other questions. You can type in your question, and Kenny's gonna address those.
Let me scroll up. Just to re-answer some of the questions. So Becky, you mentioned uploading the certifications. Yeah, every user, when they log in the user sections, they can upload all their certificates. So that kind of minimizes the burden of having admins collect the data. So when everybody uploads it, you can monitor it in the admins to see who doesn't have the right qualification, and you push them to complete it or find a missing file.
So Kenny, Omar added a question at the end if you want to address that.
Degrade by adding 150 fields? No, not that I can see. We added the extra fields to the system, and we don't notice the system being slower. And what's nice is that we use Azure. We can always upgrade the database capacity if the clients demand it. Actually, it's automated. So, if there's a lot of people collecting data or using the system, it automatically bumps it up, so users don't experience any downtime. Typically, how many inspectors at once would the software need in order to do an inspection from start to end? The software supports any number of inspectors. Are you referring to inspectors doing the same inspection, or you mean inspectors in general doing inspections? If you can clarify, that'd be great. But for larger bridges, our existing clients have used multiple inspectors to do data collection. So only thing they gotta be careful of is that if you're working on doing inspection on the deck elements, then the other inspector should avoid doing data collection of the same element, because when you both sync, there could be some data conflict in there.
Just Kenny, if you don't mind, I just add to what Fabio asked. So it depends on states' practices. We see sometimes for smaller bridges, only one person goes to the bridge, and a lot of times there are two inspectors. And for larger bridges, we see anywhere from 2 to 5 inspectors. So it depends on the size of the bridge and the DOT practices.
Okay. And Justin asks, can you show the past and new coding items are broken down within inspectX? Can you elaborate on this? What do you mean by broken down? To clarify, I'll try to answer your question. So in the past coding items, you can set up your inspection form however you like. So it depends on how you would like your workflow. You can, what we recommend is put the past coding items into one set of tabs, and then you can, just like I showed in the screenshot before, put all the new SNBI coding items in a different set of tabs. So that way the inspector knows, okay, this is my old data and this is my new data. Okay. And then Errol asks, is inspectX tablet ready for field data collection? Yes. And can inspectX data be used to support another BMS, say BRM? Yes. So Utah, North Dakota both use BRM, and they both use inspectX. And so when they do data collection, they use inspectX. And then once the inspection is approved, we have an automated system that migrates the data to BRM. Justin, I can show it, give you like a quick demo sometime if you like, and we can kind of meet and see what type of data you would like to break it down. But yeah, we can break down the geometric data in NBI or SNBI. We can even have the geometric section to show both NBI and SNBI in the same page as well. Justin, we're starting the migration process, and hopefully by July you guys will be using the new system. Give it a couple more minutes for any remaining questions. Are you going to include stream morphology scholar changes with volume assessment options? So in the inspectX, you can do channel profile data. So a lot of clients already use inspectX to collect channel profiles. So we're gonna map the changes from inspection to inspection. But as for volume assessment, I'm not 100% clear on what that is, and maybe we can discuss offline and what that requirement is. But out of the box, you can do channel profile data and then track the channel changes from year to year. When are you planning to switch inspectX fields over, or is this one the state's timeline? The new version of inspectX can support both already, and it's just up to the states to determine when they want to start the switch. So if you tell us right now we want to start collecting SNBI data, then we'll add SNBI data into the field inspection section. But you said, hey, we don't want to start until 2023, then it will just show the NBI data field. So it really depends on your preference. So deposition erosion tracking, I'm not too familiar with that part. And if I can see the data, then we can see how we can incorporate it. Because a different state collects data in different ways. So it really depends on what the data set looks like. Yeah, LiDAR data we don't support at the moment. Arrow asks, can inspectX be custom configured for state-specific needs? Yes. So one of the big change about the new inspectX is that we make sure the admin section can be configured, so many ways to meet your needs that you don't have to come to us for customizations. So yes, the inspectX can be custom configured for your state's needs.
So Kenny, if you don't mind, I'll just add something to that. The arrow, as Kenny said, is very much flexible and configurable. And if a state has a very specific need that does not fit those configuration, we can always customize the system for your needs.
Okay. Thank you all for all the questions. So if you guys come up questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to us, email us. We're always quick to respond, and we really appreciate it. And then, so we have 2 upcoming webinars next. We have not determined the time frame yet. So one would be inspectX. This is our new incident management system. So you can use it to monitor, respond to flood and earthquake events. And we're excited to present this to you guys in the next webinar. And then as well as the metric compliance module. So as you all know that, every year you wait for the feds to send you the metric data to tell you what your compliance and non-compliant in. It's too late because you can't do anything about it when you're already non-compliant. So what's nice is that this module is going to allow you to constantly monitor your performance throughout the year. And then hopefully when the feds get the data, all your data will be good to go. So that's another webinar that we plan to have coming soon. So I just really want to thank you all for participating today. This means a lot to us. And like I said before, we welcome all your feedback. If you got any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to email us. We're here for you.
Thank you, Kenny. And just one last thing, everyone. We're going to send a questionnaire, just a few questions to understand how did we do with regard to this webinar, and get your feedback about how we can improve the next ones for you. Thank you so much to all of you, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.